Okay, Magic Maker, excuse me. Today we are digging into a topic that I feel is so crucial for women over 40, and it's about setting boundaries. And over the last several podcasts, either the solo ones I've done or the ones I've done with a guest, a big overarching thing that I've taken away is that in order for us to achieve what we want, be it weight loss, finding a new job, whatever it is, we have to set ourselves up some boundaries. Because one of the biggest things I always hear women tell me is time. They're like, oh, Kim, I just don't have the time. And one of the things that I do when I first start working with clients, when they tell me I don't have time, I'm like, okay, let's zoom out. One, do a time audit. How are you spending your time? Because I don't think many of you know how you are spending your time. You tell yourself that you get up, you get the kids off, family stuff, work, and then, maybe you have time for the gym, maybe you don't. I don't know what your schedule looks like, but maybe you don't either. So I know that I was forced to do this probably about 2 years ago, and it was the best thing I ever did was just park my butt down and every 30 minutes was like, what am I doing? And I did it for about 3 days. What am I doing? And do it on a weekend, do it during the week, just so you can understand what does your life look like so that when you say you don't have time, we could go to step two. And in step two, it's like, okay, what do you want to start doing? What do you need to stop doing? And what can you delegate? And that way, because I now know what is truly my time, I can say, where here, let's start with the stop, right? Where in everything that I'm doing can I stop doing? What's possible? What's possible for me to stop doing? Can I stop cleaning my house? Can I find a cleaning lady? Can I delegate some of the stuff to my kids? Can I, ask other members of my family to step up to help with the cleaning of the house, grocery shopping, loading of the dishwasher, cooking meals, those sort of things. Like what can I stop doing or delegate? And that's one of the hardest parts, I think, for a lot of women is the delegation because, I see it all the time. They're like, "Oh, if I ask my, husband to cook dinner, we'd be eating pizza every damn night or Chinese food or whatever." But or you tell them exactly how you want them to do it. And unless, we're dissecting kidney out of a body, there's really no right or wrong way. And so maybe we sit down with our family and say, you know what, I really need help with dinner. Ideally, I don't want us eating Domino's every night. Can we set up a takeout schedule? I'm a kid, I grew up on takeout. We ate takeout a lot. And I eat takeout a lot now, but they're healthier takeout options. It's not, at least where I live, and I'm not sure where everyone's living here, but at least where I live, pretty much anyone could deliver to me. And even at a pizza place, I can have a salad with chicken on it at a pizza place. Chinese food, it is literally hot salad. It's vegetables and protein. So I can find a healthier option when I eat out. And for here is the basic here is that we need to start setting some boundaries for ourselves. And to do that, we need to set boundaries so that you don't feel guilty or shame. And that's what this episode is all about. We're exploring how can we set boundaries. So raise your hand if you've ever put anyone else's needs above yours. Okay. If you're the lone person who has not raised their hand, God love you. But guess what? You matter too. And setting boundaries is about recognizing your worth and honoring your needs. And trust me, the people who truly love you, respect you, will understand why you have to set these boundaries. And boundaries is a fancy word for saying, I'm going to set my limits. Like, here's my fence. This is my fence around my time. And, how many times have you said yes when you really meant no? And when the time came to do said thing, you're just like, ah, screw me. I can't believe it. FML, right? I can't believe I said yes. I want to say no. And the whole time you're just like, you're driving there or, waiting for the person to come over, whatever it is. And you're just so like, just ruminating that you were like, why did I say yes? Guilty as charged. Plenty of time that I've done that. And just recently, probably in the last 6 months, I was listening to another podcast and the host said, so say that it's March and someone asks you to do something in June and you look at your June calendar and your June calendar is wide open and then you ask yourself if the person asked you to do it for a week from now or 2 weeks from now versus 3 months from now, would the answer still be yes? Because many times, you'll look at your calendar and they'll say, 3 months from now, can you do something? And you'll be like, and you look at your calendar, it's pretty wide open. But as it gets closer, you're like, why did I say yes to this? Right? You said yes to it because you had the time in your calendar. So the woman said, so many times she'd be asked to do something and it'd be 3 months from now. And even in the moment, she knew she didn't want to do it. But because she had the time in the calendar, she felt like she needs to do it. So now my question I'm coming back to you is that like if it was 2 weeks from now and the person asked you to do it, would you say yes? And so that's one of the things that's a boundary, right? So it's like, is it immediate a hell yeah, or is it an immediate no? And sure, for me, there's certain things that like you as a kind of like a family member, you might be say yes to. But for me, like, don't ask me to help you move. I could be your best friend, but I am not going to help you move. That's lugging. No, I barely want to move my own stuff. So don't ask me to move. That's a boundary. That's a boundary for me. So, so like I said, boundaries are setting clear limits. And then how do you know that you need to start to set boundaries? Well, here are some signs for you to look out for you to know that I need to start setting some boundaries. Someone saying no is difficult. Someone asks you anything, you are like, you feel guilty if you say no, or you're always putting other people's needs ahead of you. And this is a big one for ladies, for especially moms. I'm not saying your kids don't matter. I'm not saying you want them to not have a good life, but I see so many of you wrapping yourselves around the axle for your children. What I'm saying is, can you carve out some time for you? I'm not saying that, you need to ignore your children, but I'm saying does each and every need of theirs need to be met in their timeline? Can you carve out a little fraction of the time for you? And I say this because if you show your kids how to set boundaries, they're not going to feel like we did when we grew up that like, oh, I can't say no, I must people please and all of this other stuff. And I regularly see it and it's like, oh, my kids, my kids, my kids, like my kids are here, my kids are there, my kids are here. And I just want you if you sat down with your kids and said, hey, mommy wants to take a dance class on Thursday nights, would your kids say no? Right. And so it's like explaining like, hey, mommy's gonna take a dance class on Thursday night. So that means this is how our schedule is gonna shift around. Mommy wants to start, working out in the morning. So I'm going to need you to maybe they're gonna have to make their own breakfast, and you leave out the milk and the cereal and they have that. So whatever it is that you are kind of working with them to say, how do we create a system here where I get a little bit more free time, but you still get your needs met as well. So it's like a win-win situation. Um, these are kind of all indicators like why we need to set boundaries. It's like boundaries are keep us from burning out. Like how many of you feel like you're just on the bleeding edge? You're just like you're just running from here to there to everywhere. Again, time audit would be a fabulous thing for you to do. But maybe you're on the verge of feeling pissed off that you're doing all this stuff for everybody else and you're just like, I don't have any time for myself. Maybe you're not pissed off. Maybe you're just like, I just don't have any time for myself. But I'll tell you that this will help you to build stronger relationships because we're setting guidelines to keep from losing ourselves. Everyone deserves a little island for themselves. Everyone does. And it's a game changer. Like when you prioritize your needs, you become more attuned to like what you need. You become more attuned to what your values are, what your desires are, and you're no longer living by someone else's expectations. Like, here's you forging your own path. And let me tell you, that kind of self-awareness, it is a game changer. So, how do you go about starting to set boundaries? Know what your limits are, right? So before you set up before you know, as you're setting up boundaries, and again, boundaries come from taking a taking a step away, right? So I'm taking a step away and I say, okay, how am I spending my time? What do I want to start doing? What do I want to stop doing? And what can I delegate? And from there, you can kind of start to say, like, of everything I'm doing in this time audit, what actually drains me? And that's definitely a stop doing. Um, what relationships do you have that leave you depleted? You know, that there's we have those friends who are one-sided relationship, and the person calls and you look at their name on their screen and you're just like, oh, her, him, whatever. What are those relationships that you have in there? So we can start to set ourselves those clear limits, so we can start to set boundaries around our time, that person, that situation. And so we kind of know, like, how to get out of that situation. And when we kind of start to set these boundaries, be clear and direct about what the boundary is. Now, it's not about being rude or being confrontational, not at all. It's just about I need to be an advocate for myself. So as I'm sharing my boundaries, especially if you're someone who's never set boundaries before, make it totally about you, right? It's not me, it's you, or it's not you, it's me. Um, so one of the examples here is, like, maybe at work, you're just, so much work is being dumped on you and you're just like, you don't know which end is up, where you should prioritize your time, and just say, hey, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I feel overwhelmed when I take on too much. Can you help me prioritize this? What's the order of importance, right? And that way, it's like you're setting your boundary of, like, you're not just going to be this dumping ground, but you're also being proactive by being like, yeah, I want to help. I want to be that team player, but I need to understand the order of the team, right? What's the starting roster here? Same for personal situations. Maybe you're asked to participate in something, and it's like, maybe it's just like one more extra task that you're just like, I just can't do it this week. So instead of being like, leave me alone, I can't do it this week, be like, hey, I'm overwhelmed when I take on too much. I would love to support whatever it is that someone asks you. you know is there another way I can contribute? And that way, it's like, you're saying no, but you're also giving them you're giving another alternative. And if you don't want to give an all of alternative, you don't have to. You can just say, you know what? No, I'm not baking cookies for the bake sale. Hit me up on the next time. It's too much for me right now. And be okay with it. Like, stand within your power, because you're not being rude. You're just saying, right now in this moment. And we just face it, all of us have those weeks, right? It's like, we have those weeks where just like one more thing, like, you're just floating, like, on the surface, and then that one more thing is that rock that's just going to sink you under. And we all have those weeks, and it's okay to be like, I'm just having one of those weeks. I'm overwhelmed right now. This would sink me. And most people wouldn't be like, well, you're still doing it. Like, most people be like, okay, all right, let me back off. um and as you are doing this, be consistent, right? Because it's really easy for you to feel bad, and then you let something slide, and then you let something slide, and then all of a sudden you're no longer having that boundary. So I didn't realize I was setting boundaries, but back, I was like 25, 26. I worked for a really hard boss, and she would always come to my desk literally at, like, 4:30. This must be done by first thing tomorrow. And so, I was leaving, hopefully in 30 minutes, turned into I was leaving 2 hours later to finish said project. And so I was just like, and I would always be resentful, pissed off, you know, I didn't even know what burnout was back then, but I was literally on the verge of burnout. And I started going to a kickboxing class. And it was on Monday and Wednesday night. And I was like, it was just heaven. Like it was gave me something to look forward to in my week. And so I remember sitting in our meeting and I said, hey, names being protected, names being changed here so I don't get sued. I said, hey, Sarah, just so you know, I just found a great kickboxing class, and on Monday and Wednesdays, I'm gonna need to leave at 5:30. And she was like, "Oh, really?" Inside, I was like, "Please do not ask to come. Please do not ask to come." She didn't, thank you, Jesus. And I said, "I'm gonna leave here at 5:30." I'm like, "It's just something I need to do." I'm like, "I need to start working out." And she's like, "Oh, that sounds fabulous." And so the first time she came to my desk, like, at 5:15, it's like, "Oh, this must be done." I was like, "Hey, remember I said I was gonna start taking that kickboxing class?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah, you can work on this tomorrow." Right? So all of a sudden, like what was always urgent, because I set that boundary, I was very consistent with it. She started to get, I kind of trained her that that was my boundary. But I also think back now, as hindsight's always 2020. I also trained her that she could dump crap on me at the last minute and I would do it. And so in that situation, I could have been like, "Hey, I was really planning to leave here at 5. Is this absolutely urgent? Can I start working on this first thing when I get in?" Right? So it's really also like us having, the confidence, the stones, the balls to ask the question, not in a like fuck off kind of way, but more like, "Hey, is this absolutely imperative that this gets done?" Versus, that woman, it was really her whims. And I don't really know if it's like that in the workplace anymore. I haven't had a traditional job in like 14 years. So I'm so far removed from what work looks like now. I think I would be fired on like my first day if I went back to a traditional job. Um and boundaries is your ultimate self-care, right? It's important for us to take care of ourselves, because if when we set our boundaries, we don't overextend ourselves. And when I don't extend myself, it gives me time to recharge my battery so that I can start prioritize my physical health, but also my mental health. I've also heard it called tiger time. And, tiger time is that like specific activities that you are just going to like, you're going to protect it like a tiger is protecting their young. Like you're not going to let anything come between you and this thing, right? So back in the day, it was my like 5:30 kickboxing class on Monday and Wednesday. That was my tiger time. Um, Now my tiger time are my morning workouts. Like that's, one of the first things when I started working for myself was I used to teach every single morning, 6:30. I would train clients about 10, and then I would have time for myself. And one of the first things I said to myself was like, you know what? I perform better in the morning. I'm much better. I'm more consistent. I'm more focused when I work out first thing in the morning, when I get out of bed and I work out. And that was one of the first things when I started working for myself, was that I needed to replace the income I made by teaching and training first thing in the morning. And now that's my tiger time. Like, you have to be a pretty special snowflake for me to do something for you before 9 a.m. Um, Same thing about my evening routine. I have a bedtime. I have a bedtime routine. And I know in my bedtime routine, if I don't get enough wind down time, I don't sleep well. And when I don't sleep well, I know the next day is going to be shit. I know the next day I'm going to be exhausted. I'm going to be relying on coffee. And I know I'm going to eat like crap because I did not get enough sleep. So start to like, as you start to do these things, start to like see not only like mentally what it does, but like physically, what are some of the changes? And these are things that just started to tune in with myself. And I'm encouraging you to do the same thing. And as you do this, right, setting boundaries is not like an overnight thing. It's like, okay, I'm going to set my boundaries tonight. Thanks for the podcast, Kim. Setting boundaries can be challenging, especially if you're used to putting other people's needs in front of you. You know, I have a client who she is that like, you know, mom, and she will drive you anywhere you want to go. She'll make you anything you want for dinner, all the things. And, plus she has a full-time job, and just literally finding 15 minutes for her to work out, you would have thought I asked her to go to the moon. Right. And so I get that. And so here is where I encourage you to start to prioritize yourself. And again, have the conversation with your family. And I promise you, if you said to your family, hey, I want to start working out more, there's not a family on the planet that would be like, oh no, mom, you can't work out. What are you, crazy? Like, they would be like, all right, cool, mom. And then you can be like, what that means is, and explain what you are looking for. How can they help you honor yourself? And this is how you're starting to set the boundary of working out. And, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to screw it up. That's okay. But you're taking the forward action. You're doing the steps to try to find a way to create this um, boundary. And that's what matters, right? The matter is that we're striving to reach a life that we're living fully authentically. We're living fully ourselves, because you deserve to feel excited. You deserve to feel confident. You deserve to feel fit if that's what you're chasing. And that's the whole goal of this podcast, is just I want you to be like, how can I start to create and establish some boundaries? And even if it starts with just one, for me, it's my tiger time. It's my tiger time. It's my morning workout, and it's my evening bedtime ritual. It could be anything. It could start with as little as 5 minutes to do breath work, 15 minutes to do some type of quick exercise. So I would love to hear, what is your example of tiger time? So do me a favor, leave me a comment on the socials, and I will talk to you soon. Enjoy the rest of your day.